Hey friends, and welcome to the Wine CEO podcast. Today in episode 120, I am going to be talking about everything you need to know about Greece. In the last few weeks, I've been doing a mini series on Greece and I've interviewed winemakers, sommeliers, and industry professionals. And today on the show, I'm giving you the cliff notes of less than 20 minutes, highlights everything about Greece. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is talk about the history of Greece and Greece as a winemaking region. So Greece has been making wine for millennia. In fact, it was one of the first places where grapes were grown and wine was produced. Back in the 5th century BC, Greece was actually considered the largest producing wine country in the world, and it was by far the most known for making top quality production wine for the time. But you may be wondering, well, what happened? If Greece was the country that had the first sommeliers and the first wine legislation, why have I not really heard about Greece as a modern wine producing region? Well, over many different invasions, different empires took over Greece, including the Ottoman Empire, which was Muslim. And because of that, Greece lost its focus on wine production. And so while wines were made for churches and for family consumption, as a country, the industry in essence died. And it really wasn't until the late 20th century, like we're talking post-World War II, that wine production really became an industry that the country was investing back in again. Just to give you a little idea, the first enology school, or school for studying the production of wine and the making of wine, wasn't established in Greece until 1985. That's very recent history, right? So wine production really has not been formalized in Greece until very recent. So what does this mean? This basically means that the winemakers in Greece have not had as much time to develop techniques and processes and modern day production methods as a lot of other winemaking regions. But it doesn't mean that the wines are not incredible. And what we're seeing is that there are winemakers in Greece who learned from their friends and partners in France and Germany and other regions, and they're starting to really reinvent winemaking in Greece. In the last few decades, we've seen some phenomenal producers coming out of Greece, and I think we're only going to see this get better and better. So basically, what this means is that right now, Greece is a region that you really want to keep an eye on, but we're going to talk more about that in just a minute. Okay, so one of the things that's so unique about Greece as a wine region is that there are so many grape varieties, like way more grape varieties than you would find in most regions of the world. Greece has over 300 grape varieties. And just to give you an idea of the production coming out of Greece, the country as a whole produces less wine than the region of Bordeaux, France. So for a region that produces such a small amount of wine to have over 300 grape varieties is pretty amazing. Now there's only about 40 grape varieties that are really known to modern day winemaking consumers, but that's still a ton. There's still a lot of opportunity for experimentation and for more growth and development and new wine varieties to be found by winemakers in Greece. Now, in 2010, there were a whole bunch of winemakers and industry professionals from around the country that got together and said, you know what, we need consumers to understand Greece a little bit more. And we have over 300 grape varieties in the country, and this is gonna get confusing real fast. We want folks in the market to be able to identify particular grape varieties with Greece. So they picked out 4 varieties and decided that these were going to be the main grapes that they focused on exporting around the globe and investing in as far as production. These 4 grapes were Xinomavro, Agyorgitiko, Assyrtiko, and Moscofilero. So let's break down these 4 grape varieties. So first up is Xinomavro. Xinomavro is a really bold red grape. If you love Barolo from northern Italy, if you love those really like spicy but fruity, full forward tannic, full bodied red wines, Xinomavro is an amazing wine for you. It has incredible aging potential, full bodied flavor, and it is absolutely excellent for the price point you're gonna find. Often Xinomavro in the US market is going to be anywhere from like $40 to $70 or more, but trust me when I say that the wine is absolutely excellent and so worth it. So again, this wine is going to be predominantly from north central Greece, Amindion, Goumonissa. These are going to be regions that make Xinomavro or Xinomavro dominated blends. And then next up we have Agyorgitiko. So Agyorgitiko has become one of my favorite new grapes from this mini series. It's a medium-bodied grape that tends to have really fruit-forward characteristics. Again, amazing acidity, so it's a really great food pairing wine. but it can be made in styles of rosé, lighter bodied reds, medium to fuller bodied reds, and it's also age-worthy. Agriorgittico, though, is not as tannic as Xinomavro. It tends to be a little more reserved, and it has softer, more velvety tannin structure that makes it really approachable for the average consumer. Now, Agriorgittico is often attributed to the Peloponnese region, so you're gonna want to find Agriorgitticos from Nemea. That's the main protected designation of origin where you're going to find incredible examples of Agriorgittico. Now, let's stay in the Peloponnese for a second and talk about Moscow-Filero. Now, this is a white wine that's often attributed to the Peloponnese and the Ionian Islands just off the coast there. It's actually a pink-skinned grape, one of the few around the world, but it makes an incredible white wine that is often compared to Gewürztraminer because it has incredible aromatic notes, but it's a little more dialed down, so it's not quite as intense as Gewürztraminer, but it has these amazing aromas of like overripe tropical fruits, some lychee, and it's really a great pairing with Mediterranean food. What grows together goes together, right? And so it's amazing with horia tiki, Greek salad, spanakopita, spinach pie. It is a delicious wine and it's a little more medium bodied. Definitely one to check out. And then last but not least, let's talk Assyrtiko. So Assyrtiko is from the Cyclades or the Cyclades. This is a chain of islands and it's where Santorini is, if you're familiar with Santorini. So Assyrtiko is often attributed to the island of Santorini, and that's really what has given this grape a lot of its prominence, and it's probably considered the most well-known grape variety from Greece for that reason. Folks are going on vacation in Santorini, and so they hear about Assyrtiko, they try it, fall in love with it, and that's the main wine that they know about from Greece. But Assyrtiko is so much more than that. Assyrtiko is steely, mineral forward. It's really acidic. It's a perfect pairing with seafood. It's an amazing summertime wine because you can truly enjoy it with any type of light food. It's refreshing, it's crisp on a hot day, and it can be made in both oak method, stainless steel, and so there's a lot of different versions of Assyrtiko, especially from the island of Santorini. There's only 21 producers right now on the island of Santorini. So there's a variety across the island and each of the wine producers kind of has their own style. One great thing to also know about Santorini Assyrtiko specifically, it's not necessarily going to be a budget-friendly wine. Because on the island of Santorini, you have these incredible winds that are blowing over the island. The grapes are grown in bushes, very close to the ground. Because they're grown in these bushes, vine growers actually have to prune them by hand, harvest by hand. This is labor intense and time intense, so it's very expensive to harvest and produce wines on Santorini. Then when you consider the exportation and all the fees that go along with transporting wine off the island, Santorini Assyrtiko is going to be a little more expensive, but trust me when I say it is absolutely worth the price point. Now, there are definitely a lot of other grape varieties coming out of Greece. There's Vidiano, there's Sabatiano, there's a lot of sweet wines coming from Greece like Mavrodaphne and Vinsanto. So there's all these different grape varieties, but if you can remember those four, you're pretty good in understanding high level the main things that are coming out of Greece right now and what the focus in the wine industry has been. It's also important to note that about 90% of the wines produced in Greece are consumed within Greece. So only 10% make it outside of the country into the international market. So that means that they're very rare. They're very hard to come by. And so because of that, they're going to be a little more expensive. So Greek wines are not necessarily going to be the most budget friendly, but let me tell you, for the price point you're paying, they're going to be absolutely phenomenal wines. Again, age-worthy, really flavorful, and it also means that the wines you're going to get if you're in the US or probably even in another region outside of Greece, they're going to be top quality wines because they're not going to make it outside to the international market into that 10% of wines being sold outside of Greece if they aren't worth the price. Now, it wouldn't be a quick overview of Greece if I didn't mention Retsina. And Retsina is a wine made in Greece that is predominantly produced from the Sabatiano grape variety, and then it is produced with the addition of pine resin. Now, this was done historically in Greece for many, many centuries because it was actually an ancient Greek method for flavoring wine, either to allow individuals to know what region of Greece or what region of the world this wine was coming from. There were ancient Greeks that flavored their wines with flower petals and things so that their region had very typical flavors to the wine. But it was also a method used to cover up bad fruit or poor winemaking techniques. Unfortunately, what happened with this practice is that so many Greek winemakers were using pine resin to overpower the wine because of bad fruit or poor production. And it gave a really bad name to Greek wine because most consumers assumed that all wines from Greece were made with this pine resin. And for many, it can be a really off-putting flavor. It's very strong and not necessarily enjoyable for many. Now, this is a practice that has definitely been retired in most of Greece. A lot of winemakers have moved away from that history because they recognized that it was not appealing to consumers, and now they're making great quality wines that have incredible fruit, incredible quality production, and so they don't need pine resin to cover up the flavors. But there are still a few winemakers that are preserving this tradition of making wine with pine resin. And what we heard from Master of Wine Konstantinos Lazarakis a few episodes ago was that there are incredible examples of this wine being made today, and if you like vermouth, that is also an aromatized wine. Technically, any wine that has seen oak exposure has been exposed to wood resin, oak resin, and so it's a resinated wine. So when you are thinking about great quality Retsinas today, if you are someone who really enjoys very oak forward wines, or again, vermouth and aromatized wine, maybe try resin. It can actually be a really interesting food pairing wine, and it can be used in cocktails as well. The last thing I want to mention today is that if you are thinking about traveling to a wine region sometime soon, Greece is the one to visit, and let me tell you why. Because the Greek wine industry is still growing and it's considered a little more of a boutique region right now, you can visit a Greek winery and you can talk to the winemaker. You can get a tour of the winery. In many regions like Napa and Bordeaux, this is not quite as easy. You would have to make reservations months in advance. You might have to pay a lot of money just to be able to taste some of the wines. But in Greece, from my experience in the last few weeks, just interviewing incredible winemakers from around the country, everyone is so willing to talk to you and so excited to share more about Greek wines because the region needs the PR. The region is excited for consumers to learn more about it. And the winemakers are just so friendly and so willing to talk to you. So it's a great place to visit because they're opening up the door to wine tourism. They want individuals to come visit. They want people to come try their wines. And so you can have a great opportunity to sit with the winemaker in the vineyard, enjoy a glass of their wine, and get to learn more about the production. Everyone's had a Chardonnay, everyone's had a million Cabernet Sauvignons, and it gets boring after a while, right? So if you're looking for something new and unique and different that is incredible quality, Greek wines are where it's at. And right now, it's also a region that a lot of folks are not as familiar with. Again, as a certified sommelier, I didn't study it. I didn't have to know much about Greece to pass my exam because it really wasn't a burgeoning region at the time. Now it is this boutique region that is growing and that people are starting to learn more about. So it's definitely one that you want to focus on and be aware of. You can start tasting wines and enjoying wines that a lot of folks around the world are not as aware of. And again, if you're within that niche market that's aware of that 10% of wine that's outside of Greece that you can consume, you can be the first to try it. Now, remember that 90% of Greek wine is produced and consumed within Greece. So for that other 10% that makes it to the international market, it can be a little challenging to find whether you live in the US or elsewhere. So your best bet is going to be to talk to your local wine shop and see if they work with a distributor that can bring Greek wines so you can try them. Ordering online is also going to be a really great bet, but remember that it could be difficult to find a great variety, a great selection. So I think our best bet is we just all have to travel to Greece, right? Summer vacation, here I come. Now, if this quick overview was not enough for you, I interviewed a whole bunch of winemakers in this Greece mini-series. So head back to the last few episodes and listen as I spoke to winemakers as we focused on each of the various regions that I mentioned today and more. You can also check out The Wines of Greece, an incredible book by Konstantinos Lazarakis, the first master of wine from Greece. It's an awesome reference, and it's the book that I use to learn so much more about the Greek wine industry. So that's an amazing book and an awesome reference. The other great thing you can do is try Greek wines, right? That's the best way to learn more. So talk to your local wine market, see if they can bring in some Greek wines from a distributor so that you can go ahead and try different varieties and examples of Greek wines. And then last but not least, travel to Greece. Again, there's so many incredible wineries to check out, so many wonderful places for wine tourism throughout the country, and it's a beautiful place to vacation, and you're gonna have some incredible wines as well. So until next week, friends, I hope you drink something new and delicious. Maybe check out a new Greek wine. Thank you so much for following along in this Greece mini-series, and I will catch you all next Wednesday on the Wine CEO Podcast.